This PetX Talk is brought to you by Pet World Media Group, your partner in all things pet media. Additional funding and considerations provided by Natura Pets, Found Animals, and Dogwise Publishing. Are you ready to be empowered? Then join us for this PetX Talk.
Hi, this is Dr. Karen Becker. I'm a proactive, integrative wellness veterinarian. So I approach disease by trying to prevent from never being expressed or happening by making wise lifestyle choices. I partner with pet parents to be able to make plans, lifestyle plans that reduce the potential for disease expression and enhance vitality. So in my exam room, obviously I speak really fast and I have a lot of information. I do have hour-long appointments, but people drive from oftentimes all over the country to see me, and I have to cram a lot of information in a very short period of time. So I've identified 3 pillars of health that I address at every appointment with every client, every visit: species-appropriate nutrition, a balanced, resilient immune system, and a strong frame and organ system. So today we're going to talk about species-appropriate nutrition. Now I call it species-appropriate nutrition because it depends on what species you are a pet parent to. So keep in mind that species-appropriate nutrition for a rabbit, which is a vegetarian grass-eating animal, that would be appropriate nutrition, would be grass for, let's say, a horse or a rabbit. That's species appropriate. Dogs and cats are carnivores. Dogs and cats are both carnivores, but kitties are obligate carnivores and dogs are scavenging carnivores, which means dogs, Canis lupus familiaris, in 1993, the International Society of Zoologic Nomenclature actually ditched the familiaris. So Canis lupus, for those of you that have boned up on your genus and species, is gray wolf. And we know that the gray wolf, Canis lupus, shares some people say 99.8, 99.9% of the DNA is similar, which means dogs, your pet dog, and the gray wolf are basically genetically identical. Now the genotype, the inside DNA is identical. The phenotype, their jackets, their coats, man, women, people have bred in the last 300 years to make short coats, long coats, short legs, big dogs, blue-eyed dogs, hairless dogs. That's all the phenotype, but the inside DNA still remains that of Canis lupus, which is a gray wolf. So what's interesting is that despite the fact that gray wolves and dogs share this unbelievable DNA that has had very little, there have been some adaptations, but very little evolution over the course of the last 10,000 years, pet foods are actually a relatively recent addition to the pet food industry. In fact, as an industry, it's brand new. It's about 100 years old. So a veterinarian by the name of Mark Morris, a wonderful man, really was kind of the father of veterinary nutrition. Ultimately speaking, Mark Morris became Hill's Science Diet. You've probably heard of that dog food, one of the top dog foods in the world. So Mark Morris, as a veterinarian, wanted to have the convenience, as Betty Crocker did, wanted to have a convenient pet food versus all of us on farms having to throw scraps to our dogs or having the dogs hunt. He wanted to provide people a convenient option of having dog food. So he created one. Brilliant. And although I'm very thankful that we have dog food, I want you to think of it no different than really having people food, in that eating something canned or bagged, eating the same food every day, all day, from the time a dog is born till the time they die, we need some diversity in there. And certainly common sense should tell you that animals were meant to eat a whole variety of different foods that would be species appropriate. So we know kitties as obligate carnivores, that they would by nature be hunting mice. And some of you that live on farms that have barn cats, your barn cats still hunt mice. None of you call poison control. It's crazy. People say, oh my gosh, I would never want my cat to eat raw meat. Kitties by nature, if you have an outdoor kitty, they're going to hunt baby bunnies, they're going to hunt sparrows, and they're going to hunt mice. That's their evolutionary, God-given DNA being expressed. That's their species appropriate diet. Dogs, those of you that live on farms, I grew up in Iowa, even to this day, my dogs will go out, and if they find a little litter of baby bunnies, they eat them like Tootsie Rolls. And I'm appalled and mortified, but they eat them. And I don't call poison control. Dogs can lick their butts and eat crap and do all sorts of things that would kill the average human being. Dogs do it with unbelievable grace because both dogs and cats are evolutionarily designed to handle the bacterial load. What's happening inside of that little mouse just goes in and gets passed right through. So what's interesting is, despite the fact that pet foods came on the market about 100 years ago, dogs and cats' DNA have not evolved in the last 100 years to eat an entirely processed, inorganic, preserved food. So they still have all of their DNA in them to be able to handle a raw, whole food, living, fresh diet. Now, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I would never consider giving raw meat to my dogs. And what I will tell you is, if given the opportunity, they would they would eat their evolutionary diet anyway. Now, we typically hold our pets hostage in our homes. We love them. We never let them outside unattended, and I appreciate that, and we love that. But they are then victims to whatever we decide to feed. So if we're feeding an overprocessed, inorganic, chemically laden, dry food day in and day out from the time they're born to the time they die, they don't have an option to eat anything more nutritious. They would pick better choices or better options if we gave them that option, but many of us believe. My veterinarian told me to never switch the dog's food, right? I buy the food from the vet. The vet would never tell me to feed anything that wasn't perfect for my dog. And yet what we know to be true is that, yes, dogs and cats actually, their evolutionary diet would be 70% moisture. They have a very high moisture requirement. So mice, which is the evolutionary diet of kitties, and rabbits is really the evolutionary diet. We use rabbit as a role model for dogs. They're about 70% water. So if you're going to try and emulate what nature would be providing for your dog or cat, you would want to feed a 70% moisture-rich diet, which means canned food or fresh, living, whole, balanced food. And that's, of course, as a proactive veterinarian, that's what I recommend to my clients, that we nourish our pets' bodies with as close to as Mother Nature would be provided. So in this situation, we don't recommend ever that you feed guts or entrails because that's where the parasites are. But I do advocate feeding raw meat in a balanced form, so appropriate fatty acids, trace minerals, antioxidants, vitamins, along with bone replacement or ground bone, some fresh organic veggies, all in correct proportion. That's a beautiful, species appropriate, moisture-rich diet that has the potential to provide substantially more nutrition than an overprocessed dry food that was cooked at 410 degrees that sits on a shelf for a year and that you just scoop out of the pantry and dump it in the bowl. Now, is dry food convenient? Very convenient. No different than driving through the dollar menu to nourish your kids. And you can do that now and then. If I was a pediatrician, I would never look at any parent and say, rely on that dollar menu for the nutritional sustenance of your kids for a lifetime. No pediatrician's ever going to tell you to do that. And yet, as veterinarians, we've convinced an entire generation of amazing pet parents to take the kibble, dump it in the bowl, feed it from the time your baby is weaned until they die. That's all they need. Really? What about antioxidants? Oh, it's all in there. It's nutritionally balanced. It's in there. What about foods that have not been processed? What about the enzymes and the phytonutrients that are found in living foods? No, it's unnecessary. Research has proven that dogs don't need that. We haven't done the research, therefore it's just totally unnecessary. What I tell my clients is hopefully there's enough common sense in you to recognize that not only do we need nutritional diversity for our dogs and cats, feeding, for instance, kitties eat a lot of seafood, poultry, seafood, poultry, seafood, poultry, seafood, poultry. And ironically, what do we see? We see a lot of cats with chicken allergies, and we see a lot of hyperthyroid kitties. The richest source of iodine is found in seafood. And kitties don't have a high iodine requirement. So when we feed them seafood, they oftentimes end up with this metabolic condition called hyperthyroidism. Suspicious? Not really. Coincidental? Not really. That's an inappropriate food for a cat. Now, what my clients say is, oh, but they like it. And I say, I know, I like Oreos, but you can't make up an entire life of eating Oreos and expect your body to thrive. We can't expect dogs and cats to eat an entirely processed, dead, inorganic diet and expect their bodies to thrive. Common sense has to tell you otherwise. So, high moisture, living, fresh, whole foods that are grain-free, unprocessed. If you're going to buy commercially available food, you can flip it over and you can pronounce everything on the ingredient label and you know why it's in there. Now you are starting to think about species-appropriate nutrition, and I would encourage you to do so you can make better choices about how to nourish your pets on a cellular level.
We're here with Dr. Karen Becker, who just did a very insightful PetX talk. I want to follow up on a couple of points you made. One of the important things that we as pet parents can do is look at our veterinarians as partners in the health of our pets. How can we improve that process?
That's a great question. First of all, as pet guardians, my job, despite the fact I'm a veterinarian, or aside from that fact, my job is to provide the best care for my pets that I feel I can provide. We would never give that responsibility to anyone else, just like I am in charge of my body. The doctors that I select for my healthcare team for my body, gynecologist, dermatologist, wellness coach, nutritionist, all those people working together to help my body stay healthy. But I don't ever say, oh, you're the doctor, you know best. I know best. It's my body. I know what's best. And a lot of people don't recognize that. They say, I'm gonna let my doctor make the decisions for my body. And that's an unbelievable amount of trust. And I don't recommend that. I think that we need to be empowered enough for wellness, not only within our own bodies, but for every animal that we're caring for. We have to know in our heart of hearts that we are making the very best decisions. And we only know that by being empowered enough to become educated and then picking a veterinarian that lines up with our viewpoint. So a lot of people will say to me, my veterinarian says I can't switch the food. And I said, well, who's running the show? Is your veterinarian? I mean, your veterinarian gets to pick his food for his dogs, right? You get to pick your food for your dogs. This is not a dictatorship. So what I tell my clients is sometimes your education will evolve past where your veterinarian is. And you say, I love you, Dr. Johnson. You've been my grandma's vet. You were my mama's vet. I'm going down a different path right now, and I love you. Thank you for all that you've done, but I am going this way and you're going this way, and we're going to agree to part ways. I'm going to find a different vet. And people say, I can do that? You need to find a veterinarian that you line up with wholeheartedly, and if you evolve at a different pace where your veterinarian's going, your veterinarian says, you know what? We just made a brand new policy. Your dog who has cancer has to get a parvo, distemper, adenovirus, parainfluenza, leptocoronal, Lyme, Bordetella, and rabies, even though he's sick. You have a right to say, actually, I'm going to decline. And then your vet has a right to say, okay, well, I'm not going to see you anymore, or we can titer, or I'll make an exception, but you have the ultimate say. You can be empowered enough to say, no, thank you, I'm choosing not to. And then your job is to align ourselves assemble a healthcare team that may meet an emergency clinic, a local clinic, a wellness doctor. You may end up at a cardiologist, but your job is to assemble a healthcare team for your pets that you trust, and you are in charge of.
One of the other interesting points that you made is the convenience of processed food, cans, bags. However, there are some other issues in making that choice that quickly impact any nutrition that's going on or potential for those products. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that for a second.
Well, there's twofold issues with food in general. There can be safety issues. So for instance, mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are funguses that you can't smell, taste, touch. You can't see them. That they can be in dry foods, especially mycotoxins grow on grain. And it naturally occurs in grain that's harvested. The moisture content isn't low enough. This microscopic fungus is allowed to proliferate, and it creates a toxin that can kill pets dead. When grains are included in dry foods, this mycotoxin can just be an unfortunate carry along into dry foods. So for instance, pet food recalls, pet foods are recalled for two reasons. It could kill dogs or it can kill people. And usually what kills dogs, like mycotoxins, is not what the issue is for people. Pet foods can also be contaminated secondarily with, let's say, salmonella. We know that 33% of dogs and cats naturally harbor salmonella in their GI tract. They're doing fine. But there's a reason why your family physician says don't kiss turtles, right? And maybe don't kiss your dog, because dogs and cats naturally have bacteria that could make us sick. So if your little kid eats dog food that's contaminated with salmonella, your child could get sick or die. And that's the second reason why pet foods are recalled. So what we have is a health issue with the pet food itself, which means, yes, if you open a bag of dry food and store it in your garage where it reaches 110 degrees, not only is the nutrient value going to decline, but the potential for rancidity, the potential for microbial growth, fungal growth is off the charts. And yes, that can make pets very, very ill and sick. So nutrient levels decline, risks for contamination increase just from not only the way that the food is manufactured, but how it's stored, how long it's sat on the shelf, not to mention what the raw ingredients are. So there's a lot of issues surrounding pet foods that oftentimes people don't even know about until they find out the most painful way, which is my dog or cat just got very sick or, God forbid, died, and I didn't even know that this was a possibility. It's overwhelming. So what we can do in terms of educating people about how to make good choices and how to purchase food, how to store food, what to look for in ingredient panels, what to look for in terms of purchase date, manufacture date, looking for what they need to avoid on the nutrient panel, what they need to search for in terms of supplementation. All those things are really important topics that if you as a pet parent don't know anything about that, and this just sparked, oh my goodness, I have a lot to learn, cool. Partner with a pet nutritionist or someone on your pet's healthcare team that knows a little bit more than you, that you know your viewpoints line up with, and learn from them.
Thank you so much for enlightening all of us with all that you do in the pet world. It's truly important.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this PetX Talk. To learn more information about Dr. Karen Becker, visit drkarenbecker.com. Funding for PetX Talks is provided by Pet World Media Group, your partner in all things pet media. Additional funding and considerations for PetX Talks is provided by Natura Pets. Natura Pets can help you optimize your pet's health with premium organic supplements from the Amazon and Andes Mountains. Visit naturapets.com. Dogwise Publishing, all things dog. For all of your expert dog book needs, visit dogwise.com. Found Animals, working towards big ideas that advance the safety and happiness of animals in our homes, our shelters, and everywhere in between. Visit foundanimals.org. Special thanks to Pet World Insider, taking you inside the world of pets. Visit petworldinsider.com for more expert radio interviews, articles, and videos. This has been a Pet World Media Group production.